Hi everyone, it's Nicole Steele of thejoyfulstamper.com. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator and it's time for another Saturday sketch. So what I've been doing is I've been taking the sketch from Splitcoaststampers. I'm a design sketch artist for them. Or rather, I make samples for the weekly sketch over there at Splitcoaststampers. So I take the sketch, I post it up on my blog, thejoyfulstamper.com, and I make a card with it. And then what I do is I write up a tutorial and I also make a video for it. So that's what you're watching now. So let's jump in. Today we're going to use Stampin' Up's watercolor pencils to make this card right here using Lilypad Lake. So I love these colors and that's just the stamp set that spoke to me to do this. So let's get started. Okay, so first we got to stamp everything. So I'm going to pull out my Misty, or you can use a Stamparatus or any other stamp positioner that you have. And I have my stamps put on the lid. I have a piece of watercolor paper taped down or put it down in the corner there with my magnet. And I'm going to use Saddle Brown Stays On ink. And I'm going to ink this up. Now the reason I'm using my stamp positioner for this is because I'm stamping on watercolor paper, which tends to be bumpy and have texture on it. And so I want to make sure that I can stamp it twice if I need to fill in the image better. So you can see how there's some little, gaps in ink coverage there. Well, with the stamp positioner, I can just re-ink and stamp again in the exact same spot. And you can do this as many times as you want. Okay, see how that's more filled in? That is just one of the many advantages to using a stamp positioner. And again, there's many on the market. There is Stamparatus offered by Stampin' Up! I have a Misty that I bought when it first came out, and I love it. It works great. So we'll set that stamp positioner aside. And I'm going to use my watercolor pencils with a water brush to fill this in. Okay, so the colors I'm going to use are Garden Green and Flirty Flamingo and Daffodil Delight and a little bit of Coastal Cabana. Okay, now these watercolor pencils, they have such a beautiful soft lead to them, so the color glides on like butter. You don't have to press very hard at all. So I'm just very lightly applying a color Flirty Flamingo, and it's helpful to have a paper towel nearby. I'm going to squeeze out a little bit of water here. There's some yellow on there from my last coloring, and I'm just going to go over this with a wet brush, and it blends the color. And if you want to add more color, just let that layer dry and you can go ahead and add more. So I'm going to take the Daffodil Delight and I'm going to color my sun. Now I wanted my sun to be super pale for this card, so I am definitely not having a heavy hand with this. It's probably so light that you can't even see it. That's how light I want it. And so now I'm going to squeeze a little bit of more water out and I'm going to go over that. Now, if the color turns out to be much darker than you were expecting, just take your paper towel and dab it, and it'll remove a lot of that extra color. But that is the perfect shade. I wanted very, very pale yellow. Now I'm going to take my Flirty Flamingo, and I'm going to color these flowers on this lily pad. So for my card, I picked the color combinations of Pool Party, Coastal Cabana, and Soft Seafoam. And as soon as I saw that, my first thought was Lilypad Lake. And I know it's a Stampin' Up! Set that was in the last catalog, but I still have it and I still love it. And I know most people don't get rid of their Stampin' Up! Stamp sets. Now I'm going to apply a really light color of Garden Green to these lily pads here, going very, very light. Squeezing out a little bit more color. And I want a really pale green. And if it ends up being a little bit too green, which this is, I'll just take the paper towel and dab a little bit of it off. There we go. And now I'm going to go back and add some more Flirty Flamingo to the bird here. I don't know what, is this? This is a flamingo, right? I'm guessing it is. No, but when you switch colors, I'm squeezing out water and dabbing it on the paper towel. And I'm doing that to make sure that the water runs clear so that I know I can safely switch colors, because I was coloring the flamingo earlier and a little bit of yellow was left on my brush and I got it on him. So I put him on my card anyways. So if you look really closely, you'll see he has a little bit of yellow on him, but not too much. But I just tell myself, these are handmade cards. They're not mass produced. So there is going to be a little bit of imperfection with them. I'm not going to go over my sun again because, like I said, that's the perfect pale yellow that I want. But I am going to take my Coastal Cabana watercolor pencil and I'm going to feather in with just little flicks part of this lily pad. I just want to add a little bit of blue to tie it into the card. When I leave it green, it seems to get lost in my card, which you'll see once we start putting it together. And now I'm going to use some water to blend it out a little bit. I'm keeping my paper towel handy because I will blot up some of that. There we go. Now, these watercolor pencils, you don't have to use water with them. You can just straight up color with them. And you can also use them with a blender pen. So there are 3 different ways right there to use these pencils. And they are Stampin' Up colors, so they're going to color coordinate. So put those back. I'm going to set this aside to dry for a little bit before I cut it out. And we'll start working on the card. So I'm starting with a 4 1/4 by 11 inch piece of Coastal Cabana cardstock, folding it in half, and then I have a 5 1/4 by 4 inch piece of Pool Party cardstock, and then I have a piece here of soft sea foam, which is 2 7/8 by 3 7/8. Do you guys get annoyed by eighths of a measurement? I know some people do. Now I'm going to take a Stampin' sponge, which you can tell I use it a lot. And I'm going to dip it in soft suede ink, and I'm going to go around and sponge the edges of my pieces of cardstock. I love what this does to a card. It's one of my oldest, most favorite techniques. Okay, and I'm not going too heavy here. And now I'm going to do the same with my soft sea foam piece. And again, it's just really, really light, but you're going to be amazed at how much it adds to the card. Now I have another piece of soft sea foam. This one is 1 inch by 4 1/8 of an inch, or 4 inches. You can make it 4 inches if you want to. It won't matter. Honestly, this card started off with scraps. I pulled them out of my scrap bag and just went from there. Whoops. Okay, let's brush all these little, I don't know what they're called, paper fuzzies aside. Okay, and we are now going to stamp this piece, this layer right here, the Pool Party layer. And I'm going to grab Pool Party ink. And I'm going to grab the water image. Now, if you're wondering what Lilypad Lake stamp set looks like, this is it. Pretty cute, right? Yeah. And I'm going to stamp Pool Party onto this piece here. But I'm not going to do it full strength. I'm going to stamp off first. So ink it up, stamp it off, and I'm just going to stamp it. So it puts it a shade lighter on that cardstock. Ink it up, stamp it off. And I'm just doing it randomly. I'm not going to entirely fill this card with this water image. So don't put too much thought into this. It's best not to overthink a card when you are stamping. Some of my worst cards have been the ones I thought way too hard about. Okay, so that was Pool Party ink on Pool Party cardstock. That's going to be our background, and it's going to be so pretty. So pretty. Okay, we're also going to be using these square vellum doilies. This is the package that they come in, and I used it on my Saturday sketch card last week too, but these I just think are stunning. Now sometimes when you pull them out, there's still some little chads stuck in there, but you can leave them in there or you can poke them out if you want. It's entirely up to you. But I'm going to start layering these down, and hopefully my watercolor pieces will have dried and I'll be able to cut them out and start building this card. So I'm going to use liquid glue. I always make sure my card is opening in the right direction. So this is going to be a top folding card because you guys, more times than I can count, I have glued things on my card backwards so that my card is not opening the way it needs to be opening. Now, if you look at the original sketch on my blog, you'll see that there's actually a little banner for this piece up here, but I took some liberties with it and I put a sun there. And that's okay, you can do that with a sketch. You can turn it sideways, you can change the shape, so if it has a circle, you can put a square there. You know, it's just meant to help you with your basic layout. Now here's what I like to do. I want to put snail on this, or Stampin' Seal, which is what they've got now, on this piece of vellum right down the middle, but I don't want to get glue on my work surface. So I use an old phone book. Do you guys remember these? Yeah, I keep them. And I'm going to run a line of snail right down the middle there. So all that extra adhesive stays stuck to this phone book, and it keeps my work surface totally clean. I learned that trick years and years ago, and I've used it over and over. Now I'm going to put this vellum doily sort of in the lower left there. You can see it's hanging off slightly. And then this piece is going to go on top with liquid glue. This is the workhorse of adhesive. I have my pre-order coming from the holiday catalog. I have 10 bottles of this stuff in there. I saw it went on back order. It could have been me that did it. No, I actually ordered a ton of them because I like to include them with my card kits to go, and I'm going to be designing another one this month. I had one a couple months ago, and oh my word, the response was so good. All right, let's see right here. Okay, we're gonna cut this out now. The response was so good, you guys. Thank you so much for supporting my little business here. I can't believe how much you guys liked them. So my card, if you're new to the Joyful Stamper, my card kits to go, they were 4 card designs, and you got the pieces for 3 to make 3 of each of those 4 designs for a total of 5 cards, and there was no stamping and no ink required. I had the sentiments die cut, and you could peel and stick them like stickers. Now for this next one I have coming up, I think I am going to incorporate a little bit of stamping, not much. The only stamping that's going to be required is to stamp a sentiment or a greeting. You're not going to have to stamp any images or anything. So if you're already a stamper, you probably have a sentiment stamp lying around, and it'll work just fine for these card kits. So, but I include a photo so you can put the cards together, because the cards are designed to be very simple. You can put them together just by looking at the photo. And I include a bottle of the multi-purpose liquid glue, so you can take it with you and make them wherever you are. Okay, so I'm cutting this pelican. I keep wanting to call him a pelican. He is a flamingo. I never claimed to be a bird expert. Although, you know, my parents used to have a camp, and it was really fun to sit on their porch and listen to all the different bird calls. My mom had this machine that you could put these cartridges in it, and you could pick the bird off the card that came with the cartridge, and you press play, and that bird's call would come out through the speakers. It was almost like a tape recorder, if you guys remember those. And a lot of times we would hear that same species of bird call back to us. So it was pretty neat. Their house was in the middle of the forest. My friends called it going off the grid because it really was in the middle of nowhere, like 1 or 2 miles up a dirt road. So, okay, I cut those pieces out. I also die cut from Pool Party cardstock this piece right here from the Painted Labels die set. It coordinates with the Painted Poppies stamp set, but this, I mean, you can use that with anything. So it's so pretty though. Don't you love those little scallops there? I thought it went really well with the square vellum doily. So I love that. All right, and I'm also going to take a really skinny strip of Whisper White. This is actually a scrap, and I'm going to use Coastal Cabana ink, and I'm going to stamp Thinking of You on this strip. Now, this sentiment I'm using, it says thinking of you with loving thoughts and prayers, but I'm just going to use Thinking of You. I actually got an order for Thinking of You cards, and this is going to be part of that order, and I know he wants them just to say Thinking of You, but I love the scripty font of this. So I'm just going to trim away the part that isn't going to go on the card. So I'm going to take my paper snips and I'm going to cut that excess away. And let's trim it down a little bit more so that it fits a little bit better on our card. And then I'm going to take my sponge again. And there's still some soft suede ink on there, just enough for me to sponge this sentiment strip too. Okay, I loved cutting out sentiment strips really tight around my greeting. It highlights it really well. Now let's glue this all down. So I'm going to glue my sun down, and I want it to stick out above my soft seafoam panel just a little bit like that. Everything else is going to get put on with dimensionals. Oh, we forgot the linen thread. I want to tie linen thread around this. I'm going to do it twice. This is another staple in my craft area. Can't be without it. I like them that they have them on these now rather than the cards that they used to come on. Whoops. Let's trim it down, and we're going to make our tails curly using a bone folder. Now they're already a little bit curly. I'm going to make them curlier. I'm going to take my bone folder and curl it just like you do ribbon on a gift. Okay, and I'm going to slide this over so I can make room for my flamingo. Now all these pieces get dimensional, so good thing we have minis and we have regulars. Cover this back with the regulars. That flamingo's going to get a couple of the regulars. The Lilypad's going to get a couple of the regular ones, and then this strip here, we'll put some minis. I'm gonna put 3 of them there. Because when this goes through the mail, I wanna make sure that it stays fluffed up, not smashed. Okay. It feels so quiet without my music. I usually stamp with music, but I know a lot of people find that distracting in videos, so I turn it off. And I'm gonna tuck this flamingo right there. Now it's important when you watercolor to use a permanent ink like StazOn so that it doesn't bleed when you start watercoloring. And you want to give it a little bit of time to dry before you jump into watercoloring. Otherwise, yeah, it could still bleed. Okay, and I like to take this sentiment and just bend it a little bit. Make it a little bit more noticeable. Okay, now there's one more thing I wanted to do to this. I want to use some Dazzling Diamonds glitter. Now, do you guys know these? Stampin' Up doesn't sell these, but it's a Zig 2-way glue pen. I absolutely love these for putting glitter on my projects because you can color with it. So I just put a few swipes over that Lilypad, and I'm going to put a few more on this flamingo here. And then I have some Dazzling Diamonds glitter that I've just dumped into my plastic container here. And I'm going to sprinkle it on and then tap it off. And it adds the nicest bit of shimmer. pretty? And then I stamped a card to go with it, or an envelope to go with it too, because you can't have a naked envelope. So I used the sailboats from that set, and I just used my watercolor pencils to color them in. I didn't add water to it because I don't want the envelope paper to warp. But that's how you can, I said earlier, you can use your watercolor pencils just to straight up color. That's what that looks like. And then I stamped the flap here. So those are the 2 cards. I hope my client likes them. I just love, love, love these colors. So let me know in the comments if you're going to give this Saturday sketch a try. And if you do, make sure you post it on my blog or on my Facebook page so I can see it. Also, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can be notified every time I post a video, because I do this every Saturday. Sometimes more too. So, all right, guys, happy stamping. Bye.